Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we have got a new stadium card to be talking about. Some people have been saying the artwork's a bit rubbish. I think it's a nice underwater thing. It seems quite pleasant. It seems like a phase to go where if you can, breathe underwater or hold your breath for long enough, it seems like quite a pleasant place to spend a bit of time. But who am I to talk, ladies and gentlemen? Anyway, it is called Sea of Emptiness. The name, at least, is a little bit ugly. And it says, essentially, that if you evolve or devolve, it doesn't get rid of special conditions. Now, just as a quick side note here, it's always been the case that if your Pokemon is affected by a special condition, you can get rid of it by evolving or devolving that Pokemon. This stadium stops you doing so. So essentially, the most obvious, easiest thing to say at the beginning. If you have a deck which really revolves around special conditions, the imposition thereof, then this could be really quite useful. And if we look at the format at the moment, we're in a very evolutions-heavy format. So to look at the top decks as we have them at the moment, you've got Metagross, which really revolves around evolutions. You've got Gardevoir, which really revolves around evolutions. I mean, generally the other cards that one plays are Octillery and Gallade. You've got Alolan Ninetales, which revolves around evolutions. You've got Greninja, which revolves around evolutions. You've got Vikavolt, Tapu Bulu, although to be fair, as much as Vikavolt is an evolution Pokemon, your main attacker here is Tapu Bulu, and he very much is not. And then you've got the real outlier here, Turtonator Volcanion, which really doesn't revolve around any evolutions whatsoever. So clearly there's a little bit of potential here. If you can have a deck that revolves around special conditions in this format, a lot of evolution Pokemon, especially when you get an early game special condition. You put a Ralts to sleep, well, Ralts just wakes up when it evolves into Kelia or gets rare candied into a Gardevoir. There is potential here if we can find the right deck. Now, as a quick side note here, it also stops you getting rid of special conditions if you devolve, which stops some potential shenanigans here with stuff like Devolution Spray. Now, honestly, Devolution Spray is not a big card in the format at the moment. There aren't that many decks that are really aiming to devolve. If it ever sees a huge amount of play, you have, of course, got the Rhyperior from Burning Shadows, which, when it evolves, it discards the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and you may then want to devolve that so that you can then re-evolve it the following turn, discard another 3 cards. Similarly, I did a profile on a new Beedrill card the other day, and Beedrill said that if you evolve from Kakuna that turn, then it's automatic paralysis, automatic poison. Ironically, that is actually a deck that could really use this, because that is a deck that, if it ever sees any play, is going to evolve around special conditions. But if you devolve from Beedrill down to Kakuna so you can evolve in the future, that will not allow you to get rid of special conditions here. It's not something that happens a lot in this format, but it's something you need to at least bear in mind. Now, if special conditions become relevant, this will be a very, very useful supporter card. We've all seen Froakie's Bubble. Flip a coin, if heads, paralysis. Paralysis stops you attacking or retreating the following turn, and then it just runs out after a turn. Now, we saw this in the Seniors World Final, when a game was essentially won because Froakie managed to flip heads a couple times on Bubble. So for something like that, this could be super useful. Similarly, in the expanded format at the moment, we've still got Hypnotoxic Laser, automatic poison, sleep on a coin flip, and a stadium like this could be really good if you're playing a deck that revolves around Hypnotoxic Laser. But of course, one thing that we do need to mention right off the bat, you can't play other stadiums with this. I mean, you can, but you can only have one stadium in play at a time. So we talked about Froakie's Bubble. Froakie evolves into and plays generally as Greninja, which is a deck that really relies on rough seas. And you want that more than you want this. And even in standard, a lot of Greninja decks nowadays will at least be considering Brooklet Hill to allow them to search out some of those water Pokemon. That's a little bit of an issue. However, it could make Bubble into a better attack. Maybe it's something worth considering. Similarly, in Expanded, we've got a whole bunch of decks that do play Hypnotoxic Laser, things like Seismitoad. But the problem is, you play Hypnotoxic Laser for the poison. As much as a sleep is nice, you've got a 50% chance of putting your opponent to sleep. And then after your turn, before their turn, they flip a coin, and then if heads, they wake up. And given that you've then got only a 25% chance of actually leaving them asleep with Hypnotoxic Laser, it really is the poison for which Hypnotoxic Laser is primarily played. And then, of course, you want Burbank City Gym, because Burbank City Gym allows you to take an extra 2 damage counters from poison between turns. So you can play Hypnotoxic Laser with this, but if you do that, you're giving up the opportunity to play Burbank City Gym, and I think it's fair to say that generally Burbank City Gym is better for decks that are playing Hypnotoxic Laser. And of course, it's easy to get rid of this Stadium. You can play Field Blower. Stadium goes away, and then when you evolve, special conditions do go away, because they're only kept through evolution because of the Stadium. Or your opponent can just play a different Stadium, and then this is no longer out, there's no Sea of Emptiness in play, so they can evolve and get rid of the special conditions like normal. The way I like to put this is more like Altar of the Sun than Altar of the Moon. Altar of the Moon reduces your retreat cost by 2 if you've got a Psychic or Darkness energy attached. You attach the energy, play the Stadium, and then you retreat. You decide whether you get to use that Stadium or not, because you play it and then you can immediately retreat. It's nice. Whereas Altar of the Sun has a better effect in that it gets rid of your weakness, but it's in your opponent's hands. Weakness is only relevant when your opponent attacks. So if they use a Field Blower to get rid of it, or they replace it and then they attack, it's done nothing. Sea of Emptiness is the same thing. You want to stop your opponent getting rid of special conditions by evolving, but they can just play a Field Blower or replace a Stadium, and then that's a little bit of an issue. The other big issue with this card is that at the moment we don't really have any decks that rely on special conditions. The one I will give you, it's an expanded deck, but Excelgor really is a deck that relies on special conditions. Double colourless energy, 50 damage plus automatic paralysis and poison. Sometimes people will try and make it so that they don't get KO'd, so that they can evolve and then they're not paralysed anymore. But then again, there's an instant 60 damage going on here, just with the 50 and the 10 after the turn from poison. So there aren't that many evolving Pokemon that have more than 60 HP a lot of the time, which is a slight issue. Although I suppose in Expanded you've got Mega Decks, and things like Manectric will want to Mega Evolve, and shall we say it's got quite a lot of HP. So you could stop it, getting rid of that paralysis when it evolves up into Mega Manectric. The thing is, even in Excelgor, you've got Burbank City Gym to make that poison, which automatically goes on, do 30 between turns rather than 10. Although Forest of Giant Plants has gone away now, which means that Excelgor does have one less choice in terms of Stadium. The other thing that really helps with Excelgor is that you're generally playing it with item lock like Vileplume or Trevenant. The theory being, if they're paralysed, they're going to want to play something like a Switch or an Escape Rope or a Super Scoop Up, and item locking them stops them doing that. Brilliant. But it also stops them playing Field Blower, which of course they're very much going to want to play to get rid of the Stadium, and hence when they evolve, the special conditions. Maybe it could work in that. I mean, there's a very good chance that in the future we will get a deck that relies on special conditions. And if we get a deck which relies on special conditions, this becomes really, really good. As long as you don't have an alternate Stadium that you really want to play instead. I'll give you one example. It's not a deck of which I'm overly fond, but how about a Alolan Muck GX? You can use Salazzle to instantly burn and poison, and then Chemical Breath will do 150, 10 base plus 70 for each of the special conditions. Yay! Now, you'll often be getting a one-hit KO with this anyway, so I don't know if you need the Stadium, but certainly early game you don't have a Alolan Muck. You use Salazzle to burn and poison. They then can't evolve out of those special conditions. Then you use Chemical Breath Eternal to later. It could work, and certainly in Alolan Muck. And I have seen this deck be played at tournaments. I know people are trying to make it work. I think in this particular deck, it could be fun. But then again, even if we have decks that rely on special conditions, there's other ways around it. Comfy makes you immune to special conditions if you've got Fairy Energy. Pokemon Center Lady gets rid of special conditions. And although Paralysis and Sleep mean that you can't retreat, with Poison and Burn you can. and confusion, so you can just retreat out of them, maybe using something like Floatstone. I'm going to give this between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. Seems a little bit generous. At the moment, this is not a good card. But there is potential for a deck in the future to take advantage of this, and that's why I think it's worth making a video on. And I know some of you don't think I should make a video on every single card that's revealed, but that's kind of my thing, ladies and gentlemen, because there's all kinds of cards that don't look good, and then somebody uses them, and regular viewers of this channel are going to be aware of all of those cards. You're going to be better informed. But hey ho, I want to know what you think about this card. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the pod and the channel, get some bonus pods, etc., head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.